Today on the news and why it matters, MSNBC drops a bombshell report tying Trump to Russian oligarchs. Oh, except there's a lot more to that story, and it's really not good for MSNBC. You gotta stay tuned. Don't want to miss it. It starts right now. Welcome to the news and why it matters. I am Sarah Gonzalez, joined today by Stu Bergier of the Glenn Beck radio program.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you for introducing me.
You're welcome. I mean, you know, I do what I can. Conservative commentator Grant Stinchfield, double dose of you today.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. I mean it. Thank you. Thank you.
Be sincere, Jason. Be sincere.
Social media guru of the Blaze, Jason Howerton.
Ah, that's very nice.
I mean, I appreciate the gesture, but louder would have been nice as well.
A little cultural appropriation.
Yeah, conservatives normally do that. Do conservatives do that? I don't see
They do now. They do now. Before we get into the conversation, I want to thank our sponsor, American Financing. If you are looking for, a refi or a home loan, whatever the case may be, you got to go to American Financing. They have salary-based professionals, not commission-based, so they're not like, what's going to be the deal that's going to get me the most kickback from the financial institution? They're actually looking out for you. Stu almost did business with them, but they walked you through everything. They said, I don't think that what you want to do is very responsible.
They did say that. I don't know why you have to rehash the story every time. But no, it's one of those things where I feel like we've gone through this long period of low interest rates. At some point, they're not going to be like this. And when they start going up, you're going to wish that you had refinanced and locked in a 30-year rate. It's a great time to do it, and American Financing is the place to go to get that done.
So you can go to americanfinancing.net, or you can call 800-906-2440. So Lawrence O'Donnell, he dropped a really big bombshell about Donald Trump and Deutsche Bank and his connections to Russia. Here's what he had to say to Rachel Maddow.
A single source who has told me that the Deutsche Bank obtained tax returns, which they do have, of Donald Trump's, show that the president pays very little income tax. That's probably not going to be very surprising to people. Probably not going to be especially politically damaging, since he ran saying, I try to pay as little as possible. Then there's the other part, the loan documents. And that is part of what this subpoena is going after. And this single source close to Deutsche Bank has told me that Donald Trump's loan documents there show that he has co-signers. That's how he was able to obtain those loans. And that the co-signers are Russian oligarchs.
Got him. Got him.
Nailed him.
Really? He lost Rachel Maddow.
That would explain, it seems to me, every kind word Donald Trump has ever said about Russia and Vladimir Putin, if true. And I stress the if true.
Like all good journalists do, by the way. All good journalists do say, if true, you need to understand what I'm saying.
So, I mean, that's pretty damning, right? You have a source.
A single one.
Yeah.
A single one that has not been corroborated, so don't. I know you're going to try to downplay it.
I know.
There is one source that has not been corroborated. And, stop. I see what you're doing. NBC is refusing to report on one of their own people's reports.
Right.
So you know it's like a big, big deal.
Yeah, well, it was a source close to Deutsche Bank, like on the corner near a branch, I think. Maybe had his finger on an ATM while they talked on the phone, something like that.
Yeah, so we had the following morning. So again, these people had all night to simmer in this. I'm sure Twitter was ablaze. I was happy sleeping, but I'm sure there were a bunch of people. I know I woke up this morning, Deutsche Bank was trending. Everyone was talking about it. Oh, and then after the fact, MSNBC booking producer for the show, Del Moro, let's see, whatever his first name is, Mike Del Moro, he said, Deutsche Bank is declining to comment on Lawrence O'Donnell's reporting that Russian oligarchs co-signed Trump's loans. The information came from a single source who has not seen the bank records. NBC has not seen those records and has not yet been able to verify the reporting.
Well, he is on their network. He is the reporting. He is their reporting.
He's not a reporter, though. He's a clown.
No, yeah.
And he clearly is never, I mean,
Well, he would say
tries to claim that
differently.
he's doing reporting,
Right.
but he's an editorialist with dumb ideas.
Yes, I would agree with that. That's a fair analysis. He's look. I mean, Lawrence O'Donnell is a goofball, and the idea that he's saying, because at first he said he had a single source, then it was a single source, but he had not seen, like meaning Lawrence
Right,
hadn't
I
seen.
haven't seen it, but my source
But
tells
okay,
me.
right, the source has seen it. Okay, maybe you go. Now the source hasn't even seen the documents. What is it? He's completely just making this up. And I go back to this over and over again, but like, what do they think they're going to see in these tax records? I think it's literally impossible that there's anything that has any impact in these tax records.
So it goes back to what we talk about all the time, is that if they put this out there, their Uber supporters, those who hate Trump, those who love MSNBC, will believe everything Lawrence O'Donnell just said. They won't ask any questions. Oh, I saw on the news, which it's not the news, but they'll say, I saw on the news that Trump has billionaire co-signers who are Russian oligarchs. You know how many bombshell stories I can make up about Democrats? Just make them up.
I mean, seriously.
so easy.
It would be fun.
Well, I mean, if you made it up about Trump, CNN or MSNBC would put you on their network immediately. What was that crazy lady?
Oh, they dox your relatives. Who
was the lady who
accused him of rape?
Yes, and they put her right on.
Time.
Oh yeah.
Have y'all seen Donald Trump's response though to this? He's threatening legal action against NBC. So it's going to be really, and I think instead of understanding how icky of a situation they're in, I've seen a lot on the left saying, well, good, then we'll have to go to court and we'll get discovery and then we'll finally get your tax returns. And so who knows, like if there is nothing damning in there that he doesn't, I would love to see that bluff get called and just go do it, because at some point, like, we have to hold networks accountable. Right now it's Trump, but whatever. Like, you can't just report stuff like this willy-nilly just because you're so desperate to take the guy down. And that's where we are right now. Like, there's no, like you said, I could call up CNN and be like, I've got a bombshell, and probably be on the network that night.
I saw Trump kill someone one time.
Yeah.
They put you directly
Exclusive.
on. Yes. Yes. I mean, imagine for a second, Stu, if one of us had done something like that. If Glenn Beck had gone on his radio program and just said some information that was not sourced correctly, that had no backup, and presented it as if it was total fact.
Well, let's not pretend like we've made mistakes before. Sure. We've seen how,
Right.
and we've seen the reaction.
Right.
It's not.
But this is not a mistake.
Correct.
This is intentional. This
Correct.
is trying to be intentionally misleading to damage the president's reputation.
Or he's doing like a weekly world news thing where like someone calls up and says, I've got a bat child, and the next day it's on. Like he's not checking it at all. Like I would not be stunned if he had someone who works in the financial industry who says he has a contact or whatever at Deutsche Bank and is feeding him information. It wouldn't be stunning, but I mean, again, like what's the end game here? Well, maybe he doesn't pay a lot of taxes. Again, he ran on the idea that he wasn't paying a lot of taxes. Like, let's just say it was completely true that Lawrence O'Donnell actually had a source and it was a cosign with a Russian oligarch. Would anyone care?
Right.
I mean, everyone who's watching MSNBC would still think he's the worst president in history, and I think his supporters would say, look, I mean, I don't know why he did. We saw this with the Trump Tower Moscow situation, right? Like he said, I didn't have any business in Russia, and then later on, you kind of find out, well, he did talk to them, and there wasn't any full business done, but he did have a letter of intent, and the way he said it probably wasn't the most accurate way. But we're all looking at this. What are we going to vote for Elizabeth Warren, right? Like, I mean, I don't think anybody is going to be moved by this at all. And every 2 or 3 months, they get so excited about finding these tax returns, like it's the freaking Ark of the Covenant. It's not going to do anything.
Well, that's just because the collusion thing didn't pan out quite well, I think.
Yeah.
So they had to go back to the tax returns.
I guess so.
The number of dumb things he said in that statement, though, get overshadowed, obviously, by the Russian oligarch deal. But first he says, tax avoidance is patriotic. Tax evasion is illegal. And there is a big difference between the two. It is your duty as a citizen to avoid paying taxes legally. Tax evasion is illegal. And the fact that Donald Trump tries to avoid taxes, we all do it. Who wants to go pay the most amount of taxes if there are laws that allow you to pay less? Why wouldn't you take advantage of that?
Yeah, I think it's similar to the legal system in a way, in that, like, even a person who's done things that are wrong gets the most vigorous defense by their attorney, right? And it's like, if you try to do your best job you possibly can within the law, of course, to pay as little as possible. You might take a specific investment on over another one because you want to pay less in taxes.
You want to
do that all the time.
avoid paying taxes.
Exactly.
Buy real estate
And this
instead
is
of buying something
and this is a
else.
winning message for Donald, because all he has to say to his supporters is just that. I want to keep more of my money. Can anybody relate to that? Of course we can.
And his supporters actually won't hate him for it.
Right.
Like, the left, Bernie Sanders does the same crap, except
Yeah.
Bernie Sanders
Lies about it.
I mean, you've seen him asked about it. He's like, well, do you take the advantages that were given to you in the Trump tax plan? I mean, Bernie Sanders benefited out of that plan. Does he take them? Sure he does. They all do. Of course they do, because it's the only sane thing to do, to not give up your money for nothing. But they have to act as if it's the worst thing in the world. None of this is going to move the needle, though, right? This is just another pathetic example of MSNBC and the left doing whatever they can, whenever they can, to rile up their audience, as if they can go further, as if they can be more anti-Trump than they already are, as if they can go all the way past 10 to 11. Like, there's nowhere else to go.
Do you know what was really funny about that clip, though? Is, like, I think even Maddow.
All of it?
Maddow's reaction, it looked like she really had to put that on.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I felt like even she was like, what?
Really? No, I liked that she kept going, as if what he was saying was just so insightful that it just warranted her going,
It almost feels like, in another world, I would say it looks like she's saying, like, I am on TV, and this guy's blatantly saying something that has no backing. How do I react? Like, it does feel
How
that
would
way.
a person react?
But right, exactly. I could say and it's not like calling him out on the air, but
Or-
it's also
or
not
agreeing with him,
right? But then again, Rachel Maddow has been the worst, probably of all of them, when it comes to conspiracy theories, particularly about Russia and Trump. I mean, she's been touting every single little turn as if it's the biggest thing in the world. And at some point, your audience, I would think they'd just get bored of it. I mean, we're certainly seeing that at CNN.
Look at the ratings.
The
Yeah,
doors,
they're bored.
So I call it blind liberal zombieism. And you literally follow these people. Anyone who's watched The Walking Dead know these zombies move in packs and they follow blindly. That's who's watching Rachel Maddow. Blind liberal zombies.
it does give a little bit of credence, I think, to Donald Trump saying that the fake news is the enemy of the American people. I mean, you hear stuff like this and you're like, I get why he said that, you know?
Yeah, I mean, as you kind of pointed out, it's like, this is commentary, I guess, and that is a line that is important. I mean, at times, Glenn has said stuff that's very much his opinion, and it can't be treated exactly the same as reporting. But Lawrence O'Donnell said he was doing reporting there, right? His producers said the reporting done by O'Donnell has not been verified by NBC News. They're acting as if he's a reporter, at least when it's convenient, to give it a little bit more credibility, even though they can't fully embrace it, because they obviously have nothing here. Obviously have nothing.
Yeah. When we come back, Bernie's love affair of China, but he may be a little bit mistaken on the reasons why he loves them so much. Oh my gosh.
Hard to believe Bernie would make a mistake, though.
Is it?
It's a weird...
Before we get back into the conversation, I want to thank our sponsor, Relief Factor. We're just sitting here debating whether or not Beto's burger bun, English muffin bun.
I want to hear this now because I need Relief Factor after listening to his
It's the one thing I like about Beto, and you guys keep ruining it. The English muffin is a very solid burger bun. In fact, they actually make them. Thomas's makes them in like large forms so you can put them on giant sandwiches and burgers. It's part of their company. It's obviously working.
Not that I care, but will the Twitter backlash unleash on me because I'm with you on the
Thank you.
Oh, you've
muffin
gone
on a
public
burger.
with it.
Yeah,
I'm going to unleash it on both of you.
I want to thank our sponsor, Relief Factor. Sorry, Relief Factor. We'll get back to that. So I was in a car wreck in 2013 and got a bunch of protruding herniated discs in my spine. And it turns out that that's really painful. And not just a little bit and every once in a while, but all the time. So if you are one of many Americans who are constantly in pain, do what I did, what Glenn has done, what so many of us here at Blaze Media have done. If you are in pain and you think that there's no way out, nothing has worked, try Relief Factor. It's 100% drug-free. So it targets the inflammation in your body. It's for all natural ingredients. I know some of you are probably on Big Pharma's bandwagon like Stu.
Yes.
But I am not, so I appreciate the natural part of it.
Whatever works is what I like.
There you go. 70% of the people who try it go on to keep ordering more. It's working for that many people. It can work for you. You can go to relieffactor.com, get their 3-week quick start pack right now for $19.95. I'd say that's a pretty solid wager. $19.95, 70% chance that it could get you out of pain, but you won't know until you go to relieffactor.com. So Bernie, good old Bernie, he just recently gave an interview, and he was discussing China and all of the great things that they have done to address extreme poverty. There's just one problem about that. Let's watch.
But what we have to say about China, in fairness to China and its leadership, is, if I'm not mistaken, they have made more progress in addressing extreme poverty than any country in the history of civilization.
Stu, would you like to take this one?
It is absolutely, I mean, it's mesmerizing the lengths they will go to act as if their philosophy is working, right? That of course, the truth about communism in China, when they were running a philosophy that was leaning towards Bernie, they were killing 60 million of their own citizens.
You're so negative.
I know. I guess, like, if you kill 60 million of your own citizens, you can feed the other ones a little bit more efficiently. There you go. And that was the Cultural Revolution. I mean, this is like, you have that's the deep communism part. Then they start to awaken a little bit, right? They start to say, you know what we could really use is some of these market benefits from these other countries. And they started implementing the stuff that Bernie fights against. And when that happened, when capitalism, the thing that we've developed and we've shepherded through, spread to other areas with deep poverty, we've lifted about 1.3 to 2 billion people out of poverty, many of them in China, not because of China's wonderful ideas or the implementation of socialism, because they ran away from socialism. India is another great example of this. In fact, that used to be a really hardcore socialist country and has moved so far away from that, and again, ripped hundreds of millions of people out of poverty because of capitalism, because of free trade, because of these really important concepts that Bernie Sanders has spent his entire life fighting against.
A big distinction. So India is a fabulous example of what capitalism can do to a country. But India runs their country a lot differently than China does. China is still a very dangerous place to live. If you disagree with the regime, you're in danger. You're in danger of being thrown into prison and possibly even killed.
They've got tons of Muslims in re-education camps.
Yeah.
Whatever.
About 1 million, they believe, Uyghurs in camps that. Yeah.
I'm sure that they're treating them very well.
The social credit score that we've talked about many times on this program.
So when you look at that, if they can just take a little piece of capitalism, which is what they did, they basically gave a bunch of rich guys a piece of the pie in China, but it brought up everybody with them into a workforce and able to benefit from that little tiny sliver, which really it's just a tiny sliver of a start in China, and it lifted all those people out of poverty. Imagine what China could be if they went to a true capitalist society.
And we don't have to imagine that hard, because Hong Kong is exactly it. Right? They basically have let this one little sliver have some capitalism, and look at it. It's one of the most amazing places on earth. It is an incredibly, it drives the entire engine of the economy of China. And without it, where would they be? That's why they're so freaked out about these protests. Where would they be without Hong Kong right now? I mean, it's a situation where it's literally the exact reverse of the thing he's saying it is.
Right.
And as you point out, just like with Maddow and with Lawrence O'Donnell, his people will sit there and eat it up as if it's true. It's literally the exact opposite of the truth. But that is not important to someone like Bernie Sanders.
Yeah, Jason, it seems like an odd time to be enamored with China.
Well, it's one. He honeymooned in the USSR.
Yes.
So that's his idea of.
It's very romantic.
It's very extremely
or it
romantic. And you should have seen the train stations that they had. It was fantastic. But I wonder, are the protests happening in Hong Kong because they've gotten a taste of what capitalism and what freedom is, and they're fighting it back? Like, do we have I feel like both sides now are using this as like one side's like, China's great, the Bernie side, and then the other side is saying, they're fighting for freedom. Do we really have a grasp of what's actually happening in Hong Kong right now?
Well, I think the protests are largely disconnected to this particular thing. I mean, I think the reason why I find the protests interesting is that it's something that China can't normally, I think in the past, would have just cracked down on an area like this. What do they want to deal with freaking protesters? We're China. We just roll over people with tanks. They don't want to do that in Hong Kong because Hong Kong really does help a vibrant economy that funds the entire mainland. I think there's an element here of, I mean, you look at places like the Heritage Foundation will find Hong Kong is one of the most economically free regions on earth. It shows you where would you rather live? Where would you choose to go if you could go move to China or you could go move to Hong Kong? Everyone would go to Hong Kong, which essentially being part of China, but with unleashed capitalism is a magic. It's freaking Disney.
I think to answer your question is it's because they're getting less of a taste. So for a long time they were under basically British rule that they knew what it was like to be free, and that's slowly starting to erode as the Chinese take more and more control of Hong Kong.
Very true.
It is interesting too what a disconnect we have in America because people will sit here all day and say, well, everyone across the world looks down on us for our capitalism and we're behind all of these other nations, and you've got Hong Kong over there waving American flags, waving Make America Great Again banners because they're like, no, we want to be like you guys. We want to stay free. We want all of these things. I think it's really telling, I guess they don't look down on us.
Well, I think what's really sad, though, is like somebody like me who is as connected as I am to the news and what's going on, and I don't have a full grasp because the only insight I'm getting is, like I said, two different sides of a coin, but not actually looking critically. I'm not seeing reporting looking critically saying what's going on, why are these protests happening, and is it because of the things that we're talking about, and delving into these issues about capitalism in Hong Kong and all this stuff. It's all very either supporting the state or against it. It's very strange.
And it is very much underlying, I think, in this. I mean, a lot of it has to do with extradition. There was a murderer who went back to Hong Kong, was not able to be extradited because, that's a long sort of story. But I mean, a lot of times this is the same thing. It's like, the Arab Spring had a guy lighting himself on fire in Tunisia. It wasn't about Tunisian politics, right? Like it is a bigger, it is a grander scale. These things, I think, get fired up for various reasons. I just feel like you look at the Bernie situation and it's like him with the punching bag, right? Like he thinks he's making a point, he hits the bag and the bag just comes back and knocks him in the face. It's basically what happened here in this interview.
Can we play that? It's the best thing ever. Bernie's working. Oh, Bernie!
And then he missed. I like the next punch too, which he just misses the entire.
Totally misses.
That is his campaign.
I will say this for Bernie. He did not realize he was strong enough. Like he is that strong. He just belted that bag so hard that it came back. It's just a sign of how spry he is.
So you're saying that capitalism just smacked him in the face?
It does. That's basically what happened. I like how he acts.
That was like the cartoon, a cartoon reaction.
There's an old story from 60 Minutes. 60 Minutes was interviewing Ronald Reagan. They did a very negative piece about Ronald Reagan, but they showed Ronald Reagan in the gym, and he's being accused of being too old, and he was pushing weights around, and he's doing this, and so 60 Minutes producer calls up Ronald Reagan's campaign manager and says, you hate that story. He says, no, thank you. We love that story. Because you made our guy who's supposed to be old. All we care about is the image of Ronald Reagan pushing weights around. If all you care about is the image, and you got Bernie Sanders getting hit in the face with his own punching bag,
and
it's
Joe
the worst.
Biden. It's like I think Bernie was out to prove I'm not the old guy who's weak. I'm over here. I know what I'm doing. I'm in shape, and then it smacks him in the face.
Well, see, the thing of Bernie though is there's sometimes you want to make yourself look as young as possible, but he keeps doing things that just showcase how old he is. He's playing basketball. He's playing baseball. He's hitting himself in the face. It's like for him, sitting is good. Just sit in front of a thing and, and
you
you're
can
good.
sit and be angry. That's fine. You can keep the anger.
Yell as much as you want.
Make sure you do it while sitting.
Over, wrinkly shirt, messy hair.
Sure.
That's what he's good at.
Yeah.
All right. Back in a minute.
It's only good for Elizabeth Warren. She seems to be able to walk around without falling over, and that's all you need. Now 26.
Before we go into overtime, just want to remind those of you who have not yet done so, I have a YouTube page. These little ditties I like to make, these little videos that I like to make. I guess I've only censored a couple. Right.
So it is filtered. It is filtered.
It says Sarah Gonzalez unfiltered.
Unbelievable. It's filtered. The whole thing's been filtered this whole time.
You don't want to offend anyone these days, all right?
Oh, okay. Yeah, you're definitely Yeah, you're really worried about that. I've seen your videos. You're really worried about offending people.
Unfiltered, I mean, you're throwing F-bombs around.
Yeah. Oh, man, that's me. That's me. Just the mama of a 7-year-old just throwing F-bombs around all the time. But you can go to YouTube, search for Sarah Gonzalez Unfiltered, and make sure you hit that subscribe button. Just dropped a new video yesterday. Make sure to check it out. Overtime starts next at BlazeTV.com.